Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, coming at you with yet another 80s slasher review. And this time I went a little newer 80s, something I haven't seen in quite a while, didn't remember too much of. That is 1986's Slaughter High. And whoever put this out is part of something called the Lost Collection, where they release obscure films of various genres. So like it has like this stupid banner and then like the mascot says a little something about each movie. I would have much rather it just be this, which is why for the thumbnail I made it get like this close. Anyway, Slaughter High originally was going to be titled April Fool's Day. But as they were filming, they realized Paramount was coming out with the April Fool's Day we all know later that year, so they changed it to Slaughter High. Which, this movie I think fits, well, I was going to say Slaughter High fits this movie better. April Fool's Day fits the other one better. But this one still takes place on April Fool's Day, and the plot's kind of built around it. But I mean, this is like super low budget. I mean, I don't know how you can tell from the stills, but... And I mean, the story is something we've seen a bunch of times. Marty majored in cutting classmates. Now, the story is there's this kid named Marty Rantzen. I think it was Rantzen. His name's Marty. He was actually played by a guy named Simon Scudamore, who unfortunately committed suicide a year after this came out. I don't know if this had anything to do with it, but that is kind of unfortunate. But, he plays a stereotypical 80s geek. He's got big glasses, and he's always just, Kind of looks like Jim Brewer, actually. Comedian Jim Brewer. A young version of him. And he is just relentlessly pranked and picked on. His birthday's actually on April Fool's. He's sort of the dork of the school. And I mean, the movie opens up with like this girl Carol, who's like the prom queen type girl, taking him into the girls' locker room so he can get laid. But then the group of jocks and other popular kids come in with film equipment. She's kind of talking to him like, "You ready for sex?" And he's like, "Yeah." And like a shower stall. So when he comes out naked, there's like a film crew. And then they give him a swirly, and all the other kids get detention. He stays late to work in chemistry. And then this one class clown kid, Skip, goes to sabotage his chemistry project. Because some kids give him a joint that'll make him sick. So when he runs to the bathroom, the other kid sneaks in, puts some stuff in his whatever. So it makes like a big mess. It causes flames. And this part's kind of stupid, but it's a plot device. There's like a rickety ass friggin' shelf on the tabletop. Now on the top shelf there's this big glass jar of nitric acid. And they keep showing that it's nitric acid. Why they put that on the top shelf of this rickety ass fucking shelf, I have no idea. So, now Marty's alone. He's trying to put this fire out. And of course, the shelf's going like this, and it falls, explodes all over him. It really fucks him up. So then we just cut to 10 years later. And, it's the 10-year high school reunion. And everyone from that group of people, there's like 8 or 9 of them. I just watched this, and I'm trying to think. There was Skip, Frank, Joe, Stella, Nancy, Susie, Carol. It was more than 7. But anyway, a handful of them. They all get an invitation to this high school reunion. And it's kind of funny. In 10 years, which actually you find out it's actually only been 5 because the janitor's now the caretaker, but that's later. The school is now abandoned and derelict and run down, and it looks like a typical Hollywood haunted mansion. But it's funny because in the beginning, when the school's running, it looks like it's in a place where a school would be. But then, like, when it's run down, it looks like it's in some back road out in the middle of nowhere. Okay. And then basically, they tell a little story about how Marty, he suffered months of intensive care and skin grafts didn't take and he kind of went nuts. And basically, they're all just killed off one by one. In pretty unique ways. I mean, you get some pretty boring deaths, but some of them are pretty inventive, even for 1986. Because, see, by 1986, the slasher genre had already peaked. I would say it peaked by, like, 84. That was, like, the last good year. And then it just started to peak, and now it's on its way down. And by 86, it was becoming very self-aware, self-referential, almost a self-parody. These movies knew what they were, so they kind of started to poke fun at themselves. I mean, hell, even the real April Fool's Day came out in 86, and that kind of turned slashers on its head. Most people hated that twist. I'll get to that eventually. And, some of the people are killed in some of the ways he was pranked. Oh, because in the beginning, in, like, the locker room, when he runs to get a towel, they rigged a battery up to the shower rack so he gets electrocuted. And then, like, the janitor, when they were in school, he's now the caretaker. He gets, he just gets picked up and, like, pushed against, like, a coat hanger through the head. So you get some simple deaths, but you get some, like, this one guy's shotgunning a beer. And then you get this great scene, like, where his stomach is bubbling. And then pretty great gore effects. His guts and intestines just kind of coming out, bursting through. Because the beer was actually acid. And the guts and intestines looked just as good as in, like, Dawn of the Dead. And, like, his stomach explodes. This other woman gets covered in blood, so she goes to take a bath in one of the locker rooms. And I guess he was able to rig the plumbing with acid, because the acid starts coming out of the faucet and she just gets cooked. And I mean, the burn effects on her body and everything look great. See, that's another thing. This may not be John Carpenter's The Thing or David Cronenberg's The Fly. This is incredibly cheap, but look at the practical effects. They still look gorgeous. Horrific and gorgeous. Way better than CGI. And actually, real quick, just because I have it up, I don't know why this was the theatrical poster. But I mean, this looks like some horrific, like, Microsoft Paint, like, kids project. I don't know why that was the fucking poster. This looks way cooler. But so yeah, she gets, acid. Her burns look great. None of their cars will start, of course. So they call it a tractor, but it's just like a small riding piece of shit lawnmower. So this one guy who's kind of like the gearhead says he'll fix it. So, like, his death, he's underneath fixing it. Marty pulls out the jack, so he has to hold it up. Then he fires it up so the blade's going, and he cuts his arms, so he eventually has to let go and it chews him up. That's probably the best death. And like, the look of Marty, he wears his Letterman's jacket and jeans. And he has, like, this old man mask with, like, a jester bell hat. Because that's kind of like the mascot for the school. And then, like, there's this one couple, well, not really a couple. Because the guy that gets the lawnmower, his wife, she's actually in love with, like, the dumbass jock. So they go off to have sex, and the bed that they're on is rigged to shock them. They get electrocuted. Pretty big scene. And the effects are pretty horrific. Like on her, you see it on her hands and her face, like all crispy and burnt and like twisted. But I will say the visibility in this is kind of low. Like when scenes are really dark, it's really hard to see. So, it's kind of obscured a little bit. But you can kind of make out what you see. So I mean, like big effects, like the woman with the acid, the other woman getting electrocuted. The aftermath looks fantastic. The dude with the intestines, that looks good. The guy with the lawnmower coming on, blood flying everywhere. That looked pretty awesome. Another guy gets hanged, but then you find out, but the rope breaks, and then of course there's a jump scare where our surviving girl, Carol from the beginning. Spoiler alert. I'll say that, spoiler alert. But I mean, if you're watching this, you're probably a slasher fan. You've probably already seen this. I'm not going to spoil well, I will give a real spoiler alert before I give the twist, because it's April Fool's Day themed. There's going to be a twist, which actually I'll get to. I don't need to go over every death, just the highlights. So, major spoilers from here on out. So if you haven't seen Slaughter High and you like slasher films, definitely go give it a look. But if you haven't seen it, stop watching now. I'm kind of bummed about the twist in this. The first time I saw April Fool's Day, I hated it because of that twist. This one kind of bummed me out more because Marty gets to kill the final girl. He got his revenge. He killed everyone. Then it gets really weird where everyone he kills comes back as like zombies and attacks him. So you're like, what the hell? Then he wakes up in the hospital. And it's only a few weeks after the accident. It was all a dream. And the skin grafts were actually a success. So it ends with, Marty killed a nurse, takes her uniform. So the doctor comes in, he kills the doctor. And then up close of him pulling his new perfect face off. Freeze frame. So, it kind of sucks that a revenge movie where he got to kill everybody ended up being a dream, and he ended up being fine at the end, but he ended up going psycho, and I guess it's to show that it could still happen in the future. We just don't get to see it. The only other thing to talk about would be like the self-parody. I mean, the acting is over the top, it is silly. The music, which is done by Harry Manfredini, so a lot of like the scare scenes or kill scenes, the music is very much like Friday the 13th. In fact, in the beginning, there's a part where someone pops up with a Road Warrior hockey mask, and there's that big Friday the 13th music with the and that he even says like, "Who'd you think I was, Jason?" So yeah, this movie knows exactly what it is. It's parodying itself and the genre. It like mentioning its contemporaries, like their regular films. Even the main theme is just like this wow 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 wow. Very silly music. And like the woman that gets electrocuted in the beginning, she talks with like a southern accent, and the football guy sort of talks with like a New York accent. So I mean, this movie's all over the fucking place, and especially the Skip guy, the class clown. He's definitely over the top acting, and his jokes are very silly. So it was definitely a movie they had fun with, and and the kills are not like Friday the 13th, where they're taken seriously and they're supposed to be horrific. and scary. I mean, the effects look great, but I think it's just meant like, it's like at this point you can just laugh at it. Because by 86, everything's already been done. But I mean, I still like Slaughter High. There's still, I mean, I was going to say plenty going for it, but there isn't. It's a very low budget B or C level slasher film, but I still enjoyed it. You know, it was imaginative that they tried to come up with like an April Fool's slasher with a twist at the end, and it still had pretty cool inventive deaths. You know, even if it's something we'd seen before, it was done in its own way. Oh, like this other girl. She runs outside and falls through into the cesspool. So she's covered in shit. And she climbs out and Marty just kicks her back in. And this was filmed in England, but I think it was like a Canadian film crew. Which, it has 3 writers and directors credited. 3 people got credited with writer and director. Holy shit. But one thing that kept confusing me was they kept saying like when April Fool's Day is over, Marty will, you know, he would have lost and he'll leave us alone. April Fool's Day ends at noon. We only have to make it till noon. I'm just like, it doesn't end at 12 at night when the next day comes? I don't know. I've never heard of a day ending at noon. Because they even call it midday, so I have no fucking idea what that's about. But yeah, it didn't perfect the comedy and the horror blend. It's just some things are just really silly and over the top. But it still feels like a straightforward slasher film. It's pretty fun and enjoyable. I still liked it. Again, might not be the goriest movie or, you know, the bloodiest movie, but the kills are still pretty inventive. Marty's the kind of killer that you kind of root for because he's the kid that got bullied and people are going after like jocks and popular kids, so that's awesome. But yeah, Slaughter High, just, it might be more obscure, but it's still fun. They didn't master the self-parody that you would see in Scream a decade later. Because there's another one called Return to Horror High, which I'll get to, where they try to do the same thing. And I remember that movie sucking ass. This movie's way better than Return to Horror High. But yeah, that's all I got for it. So for Room 237, that is Slaughter High. If you're a slasher fan, I could definitely recommend it. Even if you're a casual horror fan, you might get a chuckle out of it. Again, it's got pretty unique, cool deaths and great practical effects. So, again, from Room 237, that's it. Thank you.